I've got a Patriot standard dry size 16 in the vise. I'm going to be tying a needle fly demonstrating Beaverplus dubbing. I'm tying with 30 denier brown nano silk, which is it's a very fine thread, quite slippery. It has a lot of uses, but it's very good for this sort of small fly. I'm tying this in a size 16 because you can see it. I tie these smaller, still an experiment. The dubbing itself is a combination of beaver, mainly beaver underfur, some guard hair chopped in there, quite short staple, and then there's a bit of flash mixed in as well. I've mixed my own colour from the palette, the selection box, to give a ready brown. It goes onto the thread pretty easily, very easily actually, and it makes because it's so tangled and it's a nice texture, it makes a slim noodle. I tie it on away from the hook and then slide it up the thread. Nano silk's very good for this because it's slippery, and I haven't waxed anything, or I'm not using any dubbing wax or anything like that. And then simply wrap it around to dub the body. You can see there's a couple of different hair types in the mix. The guards also been chopped. And leave a thorax area, I would say, clear. This is a short staple dubbing, so it pulls off the thread nice and easy, which is one of the reasons for using a short staple dubbing, actually, if you're using it in this type of way. My wing is moose body, which is an unusual hair. I'm using a very small wing, a very slight wing. Basically, this is an Elk-hair caddis. I'm going to stack those few fibres that I've taken off the skin and line up the tips, and you can see how small the wing is. And I'm using elk body because it doesn't flare very much. So when I pull down in the thread, the butt ends there don't sit up. Keep it on top of the hook shank and tighten it down. And it should hug the body, the wing should hug the body of this fly. It's meant to be a stonefly, a low wing. And I'm going to cut away all the butts. I have made some where I've left a little head sort of thing sticking out over the eye, and I'm doing some without. I've also tied this with deer hair, with elk hair, and now with moose body. All work, but this I think this looks pretty good. I've got a nice sharp dry fly hackle. I've trimmed away the fibres at the butt, and it ties in pretty easily. And I'm going to hackle this conventionally, just a collar hackle. The idea being that I'm going to trim it off underneath the body. Now, nothing in this fly is positively buoyant. I've got no CDC, I've got no snowshoe hair. It's all conventional materials that, left to their own devices, will more or less sink. So I've got to treat this fly with floatant. I've wrapped the hackle forward. It's 3 or 4 turns. I'm using it more or less as legs, I suppose. I've tied off the hackle, and then I'm folding it back so nothing can stick out over the eye and get into the eye. Nano silk lets me make more turns than thicker threads. It's a big advantage. And then whip finish before I cut away the remains of the rest of the hackle. I make a mess of cutting away the thread here because it's not tight enough. That's one of the things with nano silk, you've got to have it tight to cut it. And then cut away the hackle again. I go back in to take away that stump And there's the fly basically tied. I'll trim away some of the waste there, but I'm going to trim the hackle underneath quite aggressively. I'm just taking a big divot out of the bottom so that the fly sits flush, it sits on the surface, and it's going to float because I'm going to treat it. I'm going to use a powder floatant. I'm not going to do it here, but I'll show you the floatant. I'm going to use a powder floatant on this, and I would rub it in. The whole fly would be treated with Frog's Fanny or with one of these silicone powder floatants that comes with a brush. And you can treat it beforehand, get rid of all the waste, and that fly will then float really well, really well. And that's a little needle fly.